Welcome back to the 500 Sprintcast. Yeah, that's a good way to start it. That didn't sound very good, and that's why we're a week late. I'm Zach Heiser. Ashton Smyth joins me as well. We're battling through, Ashton. We're going to get through it.
Yeah, we're on our own little sick tour right now, but it's okay. We're both slowly but surely getting better, and things are looking up. And we're back sprint car racing this weekend, so
Yeah.
that's an even better thing.
It is great, and happy for our guests that we're able to reschedule to this week as well. Thank you for sticking out and finding the latest episode of the 500 Sprint Cast presented by Redline Ace. Last time we talked, we were hoping and trying, and Ashton was continuing the Evan Hammond tour. Ashton, it happened. Evan went to victory lane with the Kenyon Midget Series.
I know, long overdue for Evan, and I've said it every single time. I'm going to say it again since I saw him at the start of 2024. Wow. I knew that he had some talent and was going to get done, and very happy that it finally got done. And I think we were his good luck charm, Zach. I have to say it.
I think we might have been. He joins Isaac Johnson, Landon Brown as first time winners in the 2025 season. He picks up the win at the Sports Drome. He was a former Rookie of the Year as well, and so goes on to get the victory. So congratulations to him. How do things look right now for the 2025 Kenyon Midget Series point standings? Well, Dameron Taylor is just kind of stinking things up, Ashton. Don't print the trophy for him just yet. But he's got a pretty good lead over Isaac Johnson and Evan Hammond, who, with the win, now sits in third. What a season with a couple of races left to go. I guess one now at Anderson in October for Dameron Taylor. He's just been lights out this year.
Oh yeah, and I think Dameron Taylor has that experience behind his back, but he's been jumping into a few other things besides just the Kenny Midget Series this year, and continuing to be dominant in that as well. Just continuing to prove that an incredible race car driver that he is. And I think the thing that sticks out to me most in the 2025 season though is the amount of, if you take a look at the top fives and the podiums that we've had in the 2025 season, it's a different group of guys every single week. And that's what makes this series so special is there is so much talent within this series. Obviously, like we said, Dameron, on paper, it makes it look like there's not because of how lights out Dameron is. But it's been super cool to see a lot of these younger guys, end up in victory lane or with podium finishes. And yeah, looking forward to close out the season and see what 2026 holds.
All right, it's been kind of a down period of time for the 500 Sprint Car Tour. Their last race was back on August 2nd as part of a Michigan swing that included Kalamazoo and Owasso Speedway. Of course, if you forgot about that, Tyler Rohrig stunk that weekend up. And now, instead of stinking up the bid for the championship, Ashton, it has been made official that things are going to swing really big after this weekend at Salem.
Yeah, this is the thing we've all been wondering about. And, the previous Salem race, when you talk to Tyler Rohrig, he's just not happy with how his car sits at Salem and the motor package he has going on. And then we also, some scheduling conflicts this weekend with some other endeavors that Tyler runs, and he will not be on property at Salem Speedway this weekend. And he leads the points, like you said. That's going to be a huge shakeup in the points. And now, if you take a look back at your second and third place guys, it's only separated by 6 points between Dakota Armstrong and Bobby Santos, who are both bidding for their first championship with the 500 Sprint Car Tour. But then only 30 or so points behind them is Cody Swanson, who's won this thing before. He has, a few championships under his belt. So this end of the season is going to be super fun to watch, and a lot of it's going to shake down at Salem. And obviously, Taylor Ferns, a lot of eyes on her, picking up her first Joe James Pat O'Connor Memorial last year, and such a long run standing event, and so much history behind it too. But I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Cody Swanson this weekend as well. Having that partnership with the Bohannons and Salem Speed on the side of his car, he's going to be a fan favorite to win as well.
Well, and if I remember correctly, he trailed Taylor in that race, was really the one that gave her the most trouble in last year's event at Salem and just couldn't get the job done. So obviously, you're going to keep an eye on that. My big question mark is, obviously Tyler is, for all intents and purposes, going to lose the championship points lead this weekend, but still two races left to go. If Dakota and Bobby and Cody don't absolutely capitalize on this opportunity, if things go wrong for them, I think Tyler still loses the points lead. But I don't know, Ashton, do you write him out of championship contention yet? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I wouldn't count him out at all. It'll
I mean,
really
the,
see
the
how.
gap right now is a little under. It's like 70 or 80 points right now that Tyler has the lead. So, I mean, in the worst case scenario, if Dakota Armstrong wins this event, Tyler's going to lose like 120 points to Dakota by not showing up at all. So, I don't think he's mathematically out of this thing with 2 races to go.
I don't think he is either by any means, and it really is going to shake down to how these last few races play out. I mean, you have to take in mind we are still racing cars. Anything can happen. Dakota Armstrong can show up and something go wrong with his car, and then he lose a ton of points as well. There's still so many variables that play into it. So yeah, you can't count Tyler out either. And going into the end of the season, he's always strong at IRP. So we'll just have to see how things shake out.
And he knows how to win at Anderson too, right? The multi-time little 500 champion.
That there's no doubt about that. But I think honestly, if you want my honest opinion about it right now, I think Dakota Armstrong is hungry for it. I think he wants it. He wants it really bad, especially after when we interviewed him earlier this year. He talked about the heartbreaks that he's had with the little 500 and the heartbreaks that he's had in his sprint car seasons in the past few years. I think he's hungry for it, Zach. I think if he keeps up that hunger and everything continues to go his way, I think we could see a new champion and a first-time champion added to the 500 Sprint Car Tour books.
Now, that's what I was going to say too. Is Cody Swanson. So if Tyler falls, which is going to happen this weekend if this race gets in, which it should, and Cody moves up. I mean, right now we're looking at Dakota Armstrong or Bobby Santos as the favorite to win this championship. Two stellar open wheel names that would add to the legacy of the 500 Sprint Car Tour.
Yeah, either one of them. I mean, man, their history books are insane. I mean, Dakota obviously running some NASCAR stuff versus Bobby. If you know modifieds, you know the name Bobby Santos.
Right.
So cool to have either of them, and you can't count out Cody Swanson, champion before. Tyler Rohrig's been a champion before. I really think it's all going to come down to IRP. And the other thing is, these four guys that we're sitting here talking about right now are guys that are consistently in the top five. You have to be picture perfect every single time you hit that racetrack to lock up the championship this season.
And again, I'm going to sound like a broken drum, broken record, whatever you call it. I'm going to beat the same drum, sound like a broken record, kick the dead horse. I just look at the Winchester race and the 25, the measly 25 points that were posted for Kyle O'Gara, and you just wonder, what if?
My heart breaks for Kyle Garrett. It was the same situation we saw last year. And man, it's just, I think if a hard luck award was given, I think it would go to Kyle O'Gara because it seems like it's, the past 2 seasons has been the same story for him. He's consistent. He's up there. He's in the points battle. And then a really bad race and he's just not able to recover. So yeah, it is a big story of what if. I think he's another one that's
Because
long overdue.
if he can get any triple digit points out of that show, he's in the conversation for the championship this year.
Yeah, and it was the exact same story last year. So yeah, it's heartbreaking for him. And like you said, it begs the question, what if, and what are we going to see in 2026 if, Kyle Garrett doesn't have that one bad race a year?
Yep. And again, still 3 opportunities for these other drivers to lay a goose egg as well. So, anything can happen down the stretch here. All right, we've got 2 great featured interviews coming up for you. But first, want to talk to you about Redline Ace. They're a motorsports-driven design agency working with series teams and drivers from all aspects of racing. Owner-creative Ben Porter has been working on projects from Formula One to local kart racers and wants to inject that experience into every client that he works with. In a sport that separates competitors' wins and sponsorships by razor-thin margins, why not hire Redline Ace to boost your brand before the competition does? Time for our first featured interview of this week's show, and it is our pleasure to welcome in one of the long-tenured names, I guess, kind of diving into the other side a little bit, some different stories of the Kenyon Midget Series. It's our pleasure to welcome in this week Lee Pierce. Welcome into the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first and foremost, for those of us that are watching on YouTube, love your studio tonight. This is a great backdrop. And tell me a little bit about your program. Talk about racing with the Kenyon Midget Series. Kind of, I guess let's start with how you settled in with this series and that blue 42 that sits behind you.
Well, last year was my first year back. I'd been out of racing for 16 years. Went through a divorce and didn't think I'd ever get back into a car. Well, we went to the Rumble. Me and my current wife, I got remarried. Went to the Rumble 3 years ago and walked in there and she's seen how much I truly love the sport. She's like, "Are you crying?" And I'm like, "No."
It's the fumes. It's the fumes.
Maybe a little
Yeah.
bit.
And she kind of started pressing me on why I hadn't got back into racing. And I said, monetary and family. I said, I can't justify the cost and, having a family. And she proceeded to go behind my back for the next, 3 months and talk to somebody and help make connections. And got a hold of a gentleman in Michigan named Steve Clay, who helped make all the connections and got me back in a car. Um, I joined the Kenyon series last year. I weighed a couple of different options, the D2 stuff and then the Kenyon series. And I felt like the Kenyon series was a better fit for me being able to like kind of pick and choose. It was a little more local. And that's kind of how I got back into it.
This is the guests that Ashton and I have talked to from the Kenyon Midget Series have been a lot of, either young or 30s, I guess, to that point. Guys who still are kind of looking for the next step. This is an interesting thing for me, Lee. This feels like this was the next step, kind of to keep you in the sport, in a way, not in a progression way, and not in a regression either, but a way for you to still be racing.
Absolutely. I actually have progressed a little bit. I don't know if you know this detail or not, but I have run the All-Star series this year at IRP as well.
Okay.
I'm looking on getting the engine rebuilt and maybe being able to be a little bit more competitive next year. But I've got some decent seat time out there. That was always my bucket list track growing up. I always wanted to race there, and I've had the opportunity this year to be on the same track as Stewart and Newman and Sammy Swindell. It's been amazing. Um, but as far as in staying in it, I got into a midget when I was younger, very briefly, back in the old Neymar's days, and that's right when Neymar's kind of disbanded, and I didn't have the money to go regional then. So
You talked about, a 15, 20-year hiatus. What was that experience like for you jumping back into the car for the first time after being out for 15, 20 years? I mean, a lot changes in that time.
I mean, honestly, these cars really haven't changed that much in 15 years. It's kind of like riding a bike. I mean, the camaraderie and family aspect of racing hasn't changed a bit, and that's one thing that my family now, my wife has learned to love very quickly because we have two little ones now. I started completely over, and we can go to the track, and everybody helps everybody. My kids are safe with anybody there, and it's been an amazing journey.
You talk about that family aspect, and that's something that, when we talk about the Kenyon Midget Series, that's one of the things that comes to the forefront is that camaraderie in the pits. What was that experience like for you, jumping back into the series, and was it being okay, I'm welcomed with open arms, or was it a sort of, I have to find my footing before we
I
got
mean,
comfortable?
honestly, it was open arms. It's been open arms since the beginning. Our very first night back, my very first night back racing was actually at the Rumble 2 years ago, which is insane. Like my first night back in the car was running against, big national names. And one of the first nights out, I got bumped out of the groove and got onto the bare concrete and hit a hay bale and smoked the front end of the car. And I thought I was done. And I came in, and one of the first people to check on me to give me the thumbs up if I was okay was Tony Stewart. And literally everybody surrounded my car, and within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it was fixed and back together, and I was running later that night. So, I mean, it hasn't changed at all. I mean, it's just amazing.
Talk about your season, couple top 10 finishes, a couple of forgettable finishes too, if you're a competitor like any of other
Yep.
racers that I know, right? But improving, I know these last couple of weeks have not been great. You got that fifth at Paragon. Is dirt where it's at for you? What's going on with that?
Unfortunately, yes. That's my roots. I'm a dirt track guy. I get way too comfortable in the pavement cars when I'm loose early because it feels good, and then I burn the right rear tire off. I've been trying to learn to like a little bit tighter race car early. Um, I've been frustrated with some of the finishes this year because I feel like I actually ran a little bit better last year, but we also have a very, very good field of drivers this year. The top 10 is, I mean, they're all, top tier. So,
What is the goal for you? I guess you talked about racing Kenyon midgets and then
mm,
also getting this opportunity with All Star midgets and I know I've talked with Ira Saunders about that. He's really fired up about the All Star group kind of being affordable like Kenyon is. What do you want to do here? Kind of not. I'm not saying late in your career, but again, you're just in a different spot than the other
I
people
mean,
you talk to.
absolutely. No, it is late in my career. My son has recently came on this year, and I'm hoping to maybe build something that he can continue with. Um, I would like to continue to run the Kenyon series. But next year I've been looking at options of if the All-Star series expands or, it's I might actually jump on that. I'm not sure yet. I haven't made up my mind.
Any aspirations to do some more dirt stuff? If you said,
Oh,
that's where your heart.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that Brad, we can get some more dirt stuff scheduled next year. I
I
would
know when
love
I
to.
talked to Brad in the spring, he was asking me, he's like, you know any dirt tracks that's looking for something? And I'll try to keep you posted, man. And that's the cool thing about the Kenyon Midget Series is you guys mix and match. It's a great opportunity for these drivers, Lee, to kind of showcase some different talents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, a lot of the guys in the field aren't as experienced on dirt as I am. So that's kind of where I was hoping we'd get some more dirt races. And because a lot of them are more pavement kart based drivers. So
Looking at your 2025 season so far, is there any moment that sticks out as like this racetrack was really challenging, or so and so happened, and this was a big challenge that we had to overcome?
um, after Paragon, I I had a decent chance of podium at Paragon and made overdrove a corner and got past and was really frustrated with that, but was happy with how hard we worked to get the car better and wanted to feed off of that because last year I ran really well at Kalamazoo and maybe not as well at Berlin, but I was hoping my IRP stuff would feed into that, especially Berlin. And I missed the mark badly at Kalamazoo and Berlin, and still very frustrated about that. So that's kind of my turning point of this season. I'm trying to hang in that top 10. Um, that's my goal right now. I was really wanting to get more towards the top 5 this year, but if I can stay in the top 10 with the level of drivers we have in the top 10 currently, I'll be happy with that.
I wanted to have you touch more on the next generation of racer to come out of your camp. You mentioned, having a son that you're trying to get this all set up for. What are you guys doing right now to get him ready, or how old is he? Like, what's going on there with
Oh
that?
no, he's actually 23 years old and
Okay,
just
all
got
right.
got back out of the army. He had minimal racing experience from younger, and I just thought this would be a really cool opportunity. We got a car from Brad that we have rented this year. We rented out partially to help pay for it and subsidize some of his stuff, and then he runs it part time. I'd love for him to be able to eventually run it full time, um, and
So, have you guys
build
got a
from.
chance to race against each other?
Oh, absolutely,
What's that been
absolutely.
like?
I mean, it's of course there's that competitive thing with um, but he's done really well, honestly, because I think part of his success has been from the fact that he doesn't have any bad habits. He
Okay.
hasn't he hasn't like my bad habit is a loose race car, like so he doesn't have that mindset. So it's helped him be a little more successful than I honestly thought he was gonna be.
What's more
So
stressful for you, Lee the driver or Lee watching your son race?
oh, of course, watching your son race and be successful. I mean, as much as he probably thinks to the contrary, because I'll race him in the corner deep and hard as anybody will. And but yeah, absolutely, I want to see him succeed. That's what you always want as a parent, your kids to be able to beat you in things. So
My dad, when him and I raced against each other, there was a short period of time. He told me, he goes, "I'm not laying over for you, and I am fully aware that I have to fix both of these cars. So I know what I'll do to make
That's a fair statement.
Lee, I know that Ashton kind of touched on this, but looking toward the end of the season and then looking into 2026, what are you hoping to? What are your goals? I guess still for you. And again, we talked about looking at the All Star deal, but what are some bucket list things that you want to make sure that you accomplish before it's all said and done?
This year's really kind of starting to wind down for me. I mean, I want to try to, wrap up, this season in the top 10 in the Kenyon series. Um, the IRP series is done for me now because after my last race, I definitely had some power issues. So I went on ahead and had it dynoed, and I was way off the mark. So it's actually getting ready to come out and be sent off to be rebuilt. But I'm gonna go and kind of pick as many brains as I can at that last race at IRP in October. But just finishing in the top 10 is probably my next biggest goal for the rest of this year. So
Awesome, Lee. Appreciate you making time to chat with us. What a cool story that I wish we had more time to dive into. We're actually going to talk with Taylor Ferns coming up. You were telling me before we got started, you have a connection with the defending Joe James Pat O'Connor winner.
yep. We actually shop share in Brownsburg. We're in the back corner of her shop. So um, I got to know Taylor last year when she was starting to look for a shop out in this area. And then I did some groundwork for her and helped find this place. And then after I found it, I kind of turned it over to her and she just kind of like, basically offered up, a little chunk of the back. And it's been a decent relationship, working relationship because I mean, we don't take up a lot of space and try to help out whenever we can.
All right, pretty cool. Lee, appreciate making time for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Time for our second guest this week, and it's our pleasure to welcome in our third person into the sick club, apparently, is what we have going on. Taylor Ferns from Shelby Township, Michigan, defending winner of the Joe James Pat O'Connor Memorial. Welcome into the 500 Sprintcast.
Yeah, guys. Hi. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about it. Salem Speedway coming up. You're going to try to defend this race. We were kind of talking about this before we hit the record button. That racetrack, everyone knows instantly. You kind of think about how demanding Salem Speedway and Winchester and those big half miles are on the race car. But what about you as the driver, Taylor? Trying to fight this bug or whatever's going around. Like, how concerned are you over these next 3, 4 days to get this thing taken care of so that you can be ready to race on Saturday?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really think about that until like Monday when it really started to hit me and I had no energy and was like, I don't know. You guys know how it's been. So, I was a little bit worried about it on Monday, but as we've gone through the week and I've been taking like a ton of vitamins and supplements and I'm really into like the whole holistic health thing. So, I mean, I already feel fine like by today. So I was like walking around when we were at the shop earlier and like lifting and doing like my normal routine of work. So, I think I'll be fine. I like to say I'm in like pretty good physical shape, just with my workout regimen that I have, and I eat relatively healthy. So, yeah, but definitely Winchester and Salem are probably two of the more physically enduring races, especially since it's 50 laps on a high banked half mile. But I was fine at Winchester this year, and I actually think Winchester is probably one of the worst ones as far as like physical requirements go. So, yeah, I think we'll be fine on come Saturday.
All right, how now let's get into the emotional side of it. How excited are you to get back to Salem Speedway? Obviously, the home of your first career 500 Sprint Car Tour win, and was kind of like changed the season that you were having. Almost a season defining moment for you to win last year at Salem. How much are you looking forward to getting back there, and how much have you circled this date, even when it changed on the calendar
Yeah.
of going back to that spot?
Yeah, I know it's gonna be almost like deja vu, because we went through it in like July and now we're going back again. Obviously in September, but it's also the same, if not similar weekend that we won last year. So I'm kind of into, repeating patterns.
Yeah.
Because I also won my sprint car race at Berlin a few years ago on the same like 9/11 weekend. So I'm into that. So hopefully that's kind of like a good sign going into this weekend and having the change date. But yeah, I'm just really looking forward to, getting back in the seat of my sprint car. I love racing my sprint car so much. And um, yeah, I just feel like, we went through a lot of struggles last year and then we finally like were able to capitalize and get that first win at Salem. And, I kind of feel like this year's like almost reminiscent of that, like some of the troubles that we went through last year up until Salem. And but I'm kind of like starting over. I wasn't really sure at the beginning of the year if I was going to race or not, if not how much I was going to race. Just kind of going through, like taking the bar exam and getting ready to, start to practice law and going through all that and just changing personnel around, on the back end with my race team. And so, we basically started at ground zero, if you will, like no notes, no notebooks, setups, anything. And so, just kind of going through that. But, it's kind of been a struggle. But, after running really well at Winchester and, having some of the positive runs that we did, it's been kind of like uphill every race. And so, it's just kind of like building blocks, like building a foundation and going from there. And so, I just have a lot of faith in what we're doing and the people I'm working with and the people that we have around us and, that have, offered an extra hand, like Bob East and, Aaron Pierce and, they've really helped us out a lot. So I just feel really positive going into this weekend.
I wanted to take a step away from racing for a second because, you just talked about it studying for the bar exam and anyone who knows you knows that you wear many hats outside of racing. Tell us about some of those other things that you have going on besides when you're just driving the race car.
Yeah, so I've definitely like realized this year, like objectively, like taking a step back and realizing like how much I'm doing and like almost taking on too much at once, because I was studying for the bar for like 3 weeks in the midst of racing season, and then trying to run the race team and then going races, and it was like my mind was like split in so many different directions, and it just became to the point like, okay, you know what, like I know I can pass this, like but I felt like I was half-assing everything in my life. Like I was half-assing racing, half-assing studying for the bar exam. And so I was like, okay, look, like mind check, like I can take this in February. So I ended up like postponing and doing that and then like focusing on racing. And I kind of like, we saw a lot of positive changes with that. Because I feel like running my own race team is one thing, but then also being the driver and like being in charge of certain things like the financials and just overseeing everything that's going on and making certain decisions, like I have to be present for that. And like I said, I just don't like, the people around you can feel that energy if you're not giving it your all. And not to say that I'm like that at all, but just recognizing that and knowing how I am, I think was important because also like trying to run my nonprofit with the safety bank and stuff like that, and then it all kind of got subsided just because of I was literally doing too much. So just recognizing that.
Yeah, and putting 100% back to everything. I like that for sure, like you said. And you've back on a racing note. I mean, all forms of any kind of race car you've pretty much drove. Tell us a little bit about your career as a whole, and is sprint cars your favorite? I'm just gonna ask you.
Well, coming right for her.
I know,
Yeah, geez,
putting you on the
yeah.
spot.
No, I would definitely say sprint car racing is like for sure my favorite like form of racing. And I've raced so many different things, right? Like midgets, pavement and dirt, Ford Focus midgets, pavement and dirt, Silver Crown pavement and dirt. In sprint cars, I've raced now wing pavement, non-wing pavement, and then wing 410 and 360 sprint cars on dirt. And there's just something about sprint car racing, aside from like when I did my late model, my ARCA stuff, and then Indy Next and all the Formula car stuff. I just think sprint car racing is just where my heart is and always has been. And, sometimes it takes like going away and doing other things to sometimes like recognize like your true passion or like what you really love to do. And, sprint car racing has always been it. I do miss racing my wing dirt sprint car. I love doing that so much. And I took to it really fast and had a lot of success in a short period of time when I did that. But just right now, I also like I'll take advantage of having my payment sprint car, and I always look forward to going to the 500 sprint car tour races.
I'm going to kind of do the same thing that Ashton did. I'm going to ask you a non-racing on the track thing, and then I'm going to ask you back about in the car. Every time that I've talked to you, you've made it a point to bring up your relationship with Pippa Mann and these other people, and you just talked about the safety bank. How are you trying to balance that? Because I know that those things are very important to you. I talked to you shortly after the safety bank was launched, and you have such a passion for that. Obviously, you have a passion for racing. You obviously have a passion for law if you're going to try to pass the bar, right? Or have done that and practicing law. How are you finding your balance of that, and what is your plan to try to keep all those plates in the air, I guess?
Yeah, so I think, in any industry, but like specifically in racing, like who you are affiliated with or, personal relationships and networking are everything. Like in motorsports, it's such kind of a niche community, if you will, and everybody knows somebody. A lot like law in some ways, but that's like so broad, especially since it's, from state to state and, different circles interact with different circles. But with racing, everybody kind of knows one another. And so, I think it's just kind of like once you meet somebody, just like nourishing that relationship and not taking advantage of what the other person has to offer, if you will, but it's just kind of like you have to look at relationships like, okay, if something like isn't mutually beneficial at the time, like, okay, maybe there's something down the line. And, I just feel like that's something that I recognize as soon as I started racing again, really. Because I was like so heavily into it at such a young age. And then it's almost kind of like my contact list, like, came back into full focus when I started racing again. And it's like I'd interact with one person and they knew somebody that I met when I was racing ARCA. And, it was just crazy. And I just realized, like, okay, everybody's connected. Like, how can I make this work and like almost kind of turn it into a business? And
What do
I
they
just
say? You're 2 or 3 people away from knowing everyone, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's like that was something that I really not learned, but like realized when I was in college. I was in a business fraternity and we kind of did this passing of the yarn type exercise. And it was like one person stood up and said what their dream job was. And let's just say somebody wanted to be an executive at Meyer. Well, then somebody in the room knew somebody that worked at Meyer or was a higher up or whatever. And then at one point, the yarn like touched everybody in the room of like
Wow.
65 plus people. And so it was kind of like, whoa, you just kind of, even if you're like job searching or whatever you're trying to do, if you just like voice that opinion to some, like one person, like they most likely know somebody. If not, they can get in touch with somebody that does. And so, yeah, that's just something that's been really important. And a lot of my partnerships have come that way. Like that's how I have Able Construction on my car because of the relationship with Bradford Allen, which, and then like how I have Mobile One because of my relationship when I was working with Women in Motorsports North America and Lynn St. James. And so same thing with Safety Bank and how I got affiliated with Saybelt was through Pippa Mann and Shift Up Now. So, it just kind of all domino effect, if you will.
So I guess just to be more poignant, is Safety Bank still something that you're able to do? And I know from my podcast what it's all about, but I want to give you a shot here on the 500 Sprintcast to talk about that and that initiative.
Yeah, so Safety Bank is still something I'm doing. I kind of like put it on hold throughout the summer just with all kind of like the personal things I had going on and like just with where my head was and stuff like that. But I've kind of thought about like the business model and how I want to evolve it a little bit in a certain way. And, I kind of want to do a relaunch later in the fall, early winter around PRI time. So hopefully we'll have some donation bins set up throughout PRI because I feel like that'll be a great place to collect donations from the public or like maybe pick up some leftover stuff from some of the vendors. But yeah, I'm working on our website for it right now and stuff, and kind of I want to do like a bigger relaunch, like sometime later in the fall after racing season ends. So, we're still working on it. So just kind of like maybe pay attention to their social media, like Safety Bank social medias and stuff.
And
But
this is a cool
it's
initiative for the young racers, right? You're
yeah.
trying to make sure that they have put priority safety first, really.
Yeah, for sure. Like we aim to provide adequate safety equipment to racers in need. So it's kind of set up similar to like a Goodwill or a food bank, if you will. So we collect donations of safety equipment, both new and used from the public. And then also we work on the back end on collecting donations from manufacturers and distributors. Sometimes they've leftover items on their shelf. Or like we received a $30,000 donation of equipment from Saybelt and it's all new stuff.
Yeah.
So, and we just kind of repurpose and recycle it out into the community, like through applications and stuff like that. But I'm trying to work on ways, like when we were going through it in the fall, early winter, of ways that I can streamline it to make it, because it's really just me right now. So it's less demanding on me and make it kind of like the correspondence and make it a better experience for the consumer as well.
Awesome. All right, this is my racing question. You talked about now winged pavement sprint cars. You made your must-see racing debut at Owasso Speedway, and you post on social media. It wasn't exactly great, but
Yeah.
you were able to do it nonetheless. Talk about the opportunity, first and foremost, that came to be in the Sam Pierce Chevrolet 26. And I didn't realize that you had never, that the winged pavement sprint car was still yet to be checked off your bucket list.
Yeah, so I had done some wing pavement sprint car, like it was minimal, but I did some racing with Max Steel down in Florida a few years ago. But Troy DeCare's been working on my stuff this year, and obviously he's quite a wheelman in the wing pavement sprint car arena. So and he has a really close relationship with Aaron Pierce. And, Aaron actually like helped me out so much in order for me to race for the little 500. I had decided like 3 or 4 weeks before that I was going to race, which obviously put us in a time crunch to get some of the resources and materials that we needed. And Aaron was whatever we needed, Aaron basically had like three of. So, but through the midst of that, he was like, "Hey, like if you want to, I'll run you in a wing pavement sprint car throughout the summer or whatever." And so that ended up we ended up doing a Wasso, and then Troy was my teammate, so that was cool that we got to do that together. But yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful for the experience. We had a really great car. We just kind of struggled with, certain gremlins. Aaron doesn't run that car that I was racing very often. Normally that was like more of like his personal car, I'd say. And so we were just working through some things, but the whole AP team, they were just so great to work with. I felt like we ended up rebuilding the car after Saturday night by switching out steering gears, and we were doing some stuff with the motor, and yeah, I made it a little better for Sunday, but it was still kind of like hit and miss. But just grateful for the experience, just making the most of it, and maybe we'll try it again soon.
This weekend, like we've said, the one that you've sure had circled. But I wanted to talk about last year, and I specifically remember that being such, an emotional win, such a long running event, first female to win it, all the emotions that came along with it. Kind of take us back to that moment and those last few laps and what you felt in pulling into victory lane, saying, "I just won this race."
Yeah. Well, I feel like it was just such a long time coming, It was also not that I never won a sprint car race before because I had, but obviously it was like under the new 500 Tour banner, and obviously there's more attention put on it, and I just feel like it was long overdue. I at least I feel like for my team and the guys that I working on my car, and for me, like I expect to be winning all the time. That's just my mentality. But just all the things that I had gone through, like not only throughout last year, but the year prior, and just, with me running my team and like the hardships that we had gone through, and it was like affirmation that a lot of the changes and decisions that I had made as an owner, for me, it was almost more gratifying as an owner, like we made engine builder changes and, this, that, and the other. And to me, it was just like affirmation, like, okay, like that was positive, we're here now. And, but also like being the driver and like from like the mental perspective, it was just like a huge relief, you know? So yeah, I mean, just super grateful for that moment, and we'll definitely cherish it for a long time, and hopefully we'll go back to back this weekend.
Yeah, how are you feeling going into this weekend? What are your sort of expectations for this weekend and as you finish out your 2025 season?
Yeah, I think, we're gonna try, I think, some different things compared to what we had last year. We had actually run a completely different setup at Winchester than what I had run before my Silver Crown car, and it actually really paid off for the sprint car race. I mean, I think we led like at least a lap or two. We were super fast, but obviously ended up second. And I think if we just had made like a few different changes before the start of the race, I actually honestly feel like we probably could have been more in contention for the win. But I think just learning from that and carrying that into this weekend, I think we're kind of gonna try to like reciprocate what we did for Winchester, and just see how that works out. But I think I just feel really strong about it. I think a lot of the things that we've gone through so far this season, like we've been able to build upon each race and capitalize on that, and learn from everything. And I just feel like that puts us in a good position for when we go back to Salem on Saturday.
Are you looking ahead to 2026 yet, as far as what you want to do?
A little bit. I always feel like once you get to end of August, September, like people are trying to like already formalize their plans for next year and working with their sponsors and things of that nature. Right now, we got to get through Salem and then we have IRP, but really that's it for us. So I'm kind of already thinking about, okay, we might do this, we might do that.
Let me tell you
But
why. Let me tell you why I asked that question because in 2023, you made a big branding push for, the comeback tour is not right.
yeah.
The what did you
No,
call?
2023 was the comeback tour. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Okay,
then
okay.
2024 was crap, what was that? It was the man, it'll come back to me. It literally just slipped oh my mind. But yeah, I know
At,
I
any-
know what you're talking about.
at
Yeah.
any rate, so you branded 2023 as the comeback tour. 2024 was something. Ashton,
Yeah.
Taylor,
Yeah.
whenever it comes to you, jump in. So like what? And then so 2025. And this is no knock. I feel like just kind of existed for you this year. Like you just kind of raced and
Yeah.
so like what are you hoping to do next year or do you know yet? Like what is going to be, I guess, the identity of Taylor Ferns and your race program?
Yeah. So I just thought of it. 2024 was the unfinished business tour.
Okay.
Yes,
There you
yes,
go.
yes. Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah, so we finished some business in some ways by winning a sprint car race, but I really like the thing that gets me is like I really want to win a Silver Crown race so bad. And yeah, this year I didn't really kind of do like a big marketing thing. I've kind of been more like low key on that this year, just because of, on the back end, like I talked about, I wasn't really sure if I was going to race, if I was, how much, and there's just so many unknowns. I didn't want to throw this like marketing thing out there and not be able to back it up, because that also adds a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
myself. So next year is to be determined. I still feel like we have a lot of unfinished business in the Sober Crown car though.
Could that be
Uh,
your branding 2026 Taylor Ferns to be determined tour?
To be determined. There you go. It's gonna start right now,
Yeah,
actually.
TBD. Yeah, TBD. Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, I haven't been, like I said, this year I've been kind of behind the ball as far as like the marketing push and stuff like that, because that's actually something I really love to do. I feel like I have a really like marketing, like creative brain. But this year I've just been trying to race and, focus on like things that we need to do on the back end to be better. And
I've been
so,
talking with some students up at Northwood University here recently, and they're known for, not motorsports business, but automotive business.
yeah.
And when you start diving into this, when you start peeling the layers of this onion back, Taylor, it is amazing how much business there is involved in this. And it makes sense how when you're trying to do all these things, plus, have a real job and everything else, how quickly you can fall behind.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like when I at one point in time I was working full time, which like it wasn't your normal full time job. It was like 80 plus hours a week at the Sam Bernstein law firm, and then racing, and I was going to law school, and it was a lot. And then trying to do all this marketing and stuff at the time because I was just coming back racing, and so I feel like I really needed to get my name out there. And so yeah, I mean it is literally a full time job and a half, and just all the things that go on with it, and all the emails and the correspondence, and yeah, there's so much goes into it. And then a lot of it's also connecting your sponsors with your other sponsors, so like maybe they can do business and then you can benefit from that also. So yeah, there's just so much on the back end that people don't realize.
I'm gonna stop, Ashton, because if I don't, we're
No,
not gonna
I'm
end this
I'm trying to
podcast.
tell myself the same thing because I know the three of us could sit here and talk for 4 more hours,
Oh
but
yeah. I
What
know.
are your expectations? I guess for this is how we'll end it, Taylor. Going back to Salem, you expect to win. I think every time that you unload that car. But what will be an acceptable performance for you for these next two races?
Yeah, I think obviously like we aim to win, but so does like that's the other thing with the 500 Sprinter Tour. Like there's 8 guys that unload every race that are fully capable of winning, which like you don't see that in a lot of other series. So obviously just still going in there with the mentality that we're gonna win, but I think with the way some of the races have been going, this year, like obviously like a top three is super positive. But I just feel like with the way we ran at Winchester and just like the way I am at Winchester and Salem, like I just feel like I mean the win isn't out of the cards for us like
Yeah,
at all. So I'm focused on
there you go. There you go.
that.
Taylor, do you want to give any shout outs, sponsor wise or other before we get you out of here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely wouldn't have been able to race this season if it wasn't, for Able Construction, Bradford Allen, Mobile One, Motorsports Safety Group, and Dr. Jason Cormier. They've been super supportive of me, the past 3 years. Bob and Janice East at Beast, Simpson Race Products. They always like help me out a ton. So super thankful for my partnership with them. The list just goes on and on. So just super big thank you to those guys for keeping me going.
Taylor, good luck this weekend. Thank you for making time. Nip that cold in the bud, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you to Lee. Thank you to Taylor for making time for us. A couple of great interviews. We had to shut it down.
Yeah, we did. We did. We could have kept talking with both of them or either of them for 4 more hours.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, upcoming schedule of events. As we mentioned, big race coming up this weekend. Taylor Ferns trying to defend the big race at Salem again coming up this Saturday, September 13th. Ashton, what you were there last year. Salem puts on a really good show for a lot of different divisions, and the 500 Sprint Car Tour is no different. What are you expecting out of this show on Saturday?
Salem is such a cool place to watch, honestly, because, most racetracks, you're running the bottom of the corners. Salem, you are running like inches from the wall. And something that's kind of cool due to the banking and everything, the wall is actually like angled in. So, super cool facility, beautiful facility, backs up to a drag strip as well. So I remember last year we were sitting at Salem, we all went to the top of turn one. We're watching the cars drag race, which was super cool. And it always puts on great racing as well. Definitely a place that's kind of harder to pass, and you have to set it up near perfectly. So that redraw is going to be everything going into this weekend. We'll see how that goes. And like Taylor said, 50 laps is a long time at Salem Speedway. So I think attrition is going to play a big role to it, and kind of see, who's in that physical shape to last 50 laps in a half mile high bank track.
Yeah, and the racetrack changing too as they continue to improve the surface patches all over the racetrack, which always make things interesting for the race cars out on the speedway. Then Anderson Speedway, October 4th, and then the season finale at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park on September 18th to put a bow on the 2025 season for the 500 Sprint Car Tour. Kenyon Midgets, one left, and it's that October 4th date at Anderson Speedway before they crown a 2025 champion. This show tonight was not brought to you by Kleenex, but it should have been. So thank you guys so much for sitting through with us. For Ashton Smyth, for everybody with the 500 Sprintcast, 500 Sprint Car Tour and the Kenyon Midget Series, I'm Zach Heiser. We'll talk to you next time on the 500 Sprintcast.